So, before we start, my niece, Amy, is bipolar. Now, I know that people with bipolar disorders are absolutely capable of performing as well as, or even better than anyone else. That's not the reason why I didn't hire her as the assistant chef. Amy is just really, really bad at cooking. Maybe it's the place she works at now, Applebee's. But we do a testing session with potential hires, and the food was awful, as well as delivered outside of the time limit. So last night I sent emails to the ones that didn't make it, including Amy, obviously. I immediately got an email back from her. "Hey OP, I know that I didn't make the cut, but I was wondering if there was any way that I could work for you as a waitress. I already quit my job, so I'm willing to work any hours." I sent a reply that no, I wasn't looking for a waitress, since this was a new restaurant and I didn't want to hire too many people in the beginning. I also said maybe in the future, when this place has a more stable foundation. After that, I went to bed. This morning, though, I got an email from my sister, her mom. "I cannot believe you, OP. What the hell? Mom and Dad raised us better than that. I can't believe you rejected her just because she has bipolar disorder. You should ducking know that people with bipolar disorders can." Quite a few articles that I was too lazy to copy-paste. "She is perfectly stable. I will call up the press because of all this BS from close-minded, bigoted people like you." I already sent her an email back apologizing. I didn't mean to imply that Amy wasn't mentally stable. I meant that my business isn't well off enough to hire more people as of yet, and giving reasons why I didn't hire Amy, but so far no reply. I'm really worried about what she's going to say. I'm especially worried that she goes through with her threat and calls the local newspaper. My restaurant hasn't even opened yet, and I'm worried that I'll have to abandon it. What can I do anyway? I don't have enough saved to hire her, and I've already told the new assistant chef that he got the job. If she calls the paper and they decide this is newsworthy enough to reach out to you for comment, you, or your publicist or your lawyer, provides copies of the email exchanges, and state for the record that you have an equal opportunity hiring policy dedicated to finding the best people for the job, and that you regret your sister has chosen to take out her disappointment in this fashion. If you really want to take the wind out of her sails, you might also consider teaming up with a local charity that helps people with mental health issues for a fundraising night. If she craps on your restaurant to the press, you can sue for libel, defamation. Won't help the restaurant though. I hope you use this as reason to go as little contact as possible. OP, are you sure that your sister actually saw the email you sent to your niece? My first thought was that it's entirely possible that your niece, upon receiving your email, may have called her mother and, either out of misunderstanding or malice, though I think the former is more likely, said, "Aunt Uncle OP refuses to hire me because I'm not stable enough." Given your sister's immediate reaction of threatening you, it may only matter so much whether she's acting out of misguided reaction to her daughter's accusation, or whether she saw your email and misinterpreted it herself. But I think it might be instructive, with regards to how you choose to handle this, to find out from exactly where this twisting of your words is stemming. If your sister hasn't actually seen the email chain in question, I might just forward it to her with a comment along the lines of, "It makes me very sad that you think that I could ever say something so cruel. I think niece simply misinterpreted what I said, but see for yourself." And then sit back and leave the ball in her court, and alter your relationship with your niece as you find appropriate. My mother gave up my brother for adoption. I finally located him when he was 18, living in Europe with his adopted family. Now he's married and has a son. My mom called me 2 days ago saying she was in my neighborhood and wanted to drop by. She was beating around the bush. I thought someone died. She told me his mom contacted her. For the sake of distinction, I'll use my mom for our bio mom and his mom for his adopted mom, to talk. Our moms have only spoken twice, ever. The first when my mom gave him up, and when I located him, I located his mom too. They spoke for hours. Apparently he's sick and needs a transplant. One of his kidneys is shutting down. My first thought was that he has two, so what? Well, his doctor thinks because one is shutting down, the other will follow. I am his closest blood relative. He didn't want anything to do with us when I found him, and it broke something in me. When his wife got pregnant, I wanted to send them something, but they never responded when I asked for an address. My brothers, one older than me and one that came after the adopted brother, both have him on Facebook, but I unfriended him because it was pretty apparent that he didn't care for us, so I stopped trying. To be honest, I don't even know if this request is from him or his mom, but I am adamantly opposed to doing it. He wanted nothing to do with me or mine until he discovered he needed me. He's no family to me, and our blood ties are practically non-existent. I'm leaning toward a no, and the only thing preventing me is that my brothers and mom will hate me, which I can live with. But my older brother just had a little girl, and I want a relationship with my niece. I know he'll withhold her from me unless I agree to do this. The only thing I can think of is to do the test to see if we match, but tell the doctor to lie and say there was no compatibility, even if there was. What should I do? I can understand your thoughts very well. He doesn't care about you. You tried caring, but it wasn't welcome. So why should you care now? What I don't understand, why don't your brothers, who obviously are in favor of the whole thing, get tested? Or did they, and they weren't compatible? Why are they so much in favor of you doing it, if the other brother isn't interested in being family with them? Surely you can take the test and see where you go from there. If you're not compatible, the whole thing is over and your family is happy you did it. If you are at the same point as you are now, having to decide to do it or not. In the end, donating a kidney isn't something you just do. It is something that can have consequences for yourself in your future life. I don't know what I'd do in your situation in the end, but I for sure wouldn't be happily donating my kidney to a stranger. Well, I understand not wanting to give him your kidney, but why do you blame him for not wanting to have a relationship with your family? Your mother abandoned him and didn't try to keep in contact with him. She wasn't an inexperienced young girl. She already had 2 kids, and it seems like she wanted another kid. I would be upset too. Your mom wants to have you do something to make up for her guilt. No. In the past year, my 24 female sister, 28 female, has made some really bad choices. Not the least of which is the fact that she cheated on her husband with some loser she met at work. Since her separation from her husband, she's been acting like a teenager who has no responsibilities. As far as I know, she's still seeing the guy she cheated with. My sister and her husband have 3 kids. My nephew is 11 and my 2 nieces are 4 and 3. My sister agreed to let my soon-to-be ex-brother-in-law have the kids all week, and she's supposed to have them in the weekends. However, she's been trying to leave them with family on the weekends. She and I have not been on good terms since I found out that she cheated. I told her that what she had done was wrong and she should have known better. Our parents' marriage fell apart because our bio dad cheated on our mom. Our relationship got even worse once I told her I couldn't watch my nephew and nieces for the weekend a while back. At that time, she and I had a pretty bad argument, and I tried to make her realize that she's being irresponsible. I tried to tell her if her husband finds out she's shirking her responsibilities to her kids, he could end up winning full custody of them. I was basically told to mind my own business. I haven't spoken to her much except at my youngest niece's birthday party last weekend. My mom and our stepdad, who is really our dad for all intents and purposes, are totally stressed out by the situation. We also have a younger half-sister, 18 female, that's stressed out by the whole thing. Everyone is worried that we may end up not being able to see the kids anymore. She's also clueless to the fact that in the state we live in, the courts consider adultery when deciding things like alimony. She thinks she's going to be living the good life. My brother-in-law makes a very good living. He sells high-end luxury cars. My little sister and I looked this all up a while back, and we can't believe she's so clueless. The worst happened earlier this week when she actually brought this guy she cheated with around to our parents' house. I wasn't there, but I guess my mother told him that he wasn't welcome in their house and that he's a worthless human being for pursuing a married woman. Now my sister is refusing to come around my parents' home anymore. How can I get through to her? I feel like I need to make one more effort to sit her down and try to open her eyes to the disaster she's about to face. My younger sister and I are planning to try to confront her tomorrow. Not loudly. We don't want it to get ugly. But we both feel that if she doesn't hear some real truth pretty soon, it's going to be too late for her. How can we make her realize that she's doing so much damage to not only her family, but to our whole family? Edit. I need to make a few comments here, because I have comments on here basically ripping me for claiming my brother-in-law is great. I wish people would stop attacking me for things other people did when I was a kid and had nothing to do with. I'd like anyone who thinks I said he's great to point out exactly where I said that. All I've pointed out is that at this time, he's the only parent that's actually providing their kids with a stable situation at home. I don't know all the details of how they got together. I was 13 when my sister got pregnant with my nephew. The only details I ever heard was that they met at a party and hooked up, and she ended up pregnant. No, My mom and stepdad were not okay with the situation. How could they be? But they did try to provide my sister with a support system when she was pregnant. At the time, her and my brother-in-law weren't even together. I'm not sure when he found out that my sister was pregnant. Again, I was 14 at the time and wasn't let in on any of that stuff. I know that around the time my nephew was 4 or 5, her and my brother-in-law started to see each other on a regular basis. Before that, he had their son on the weekends and that was it. Why didn't my parents have him locked up? You'd have to ask them. For all I know, they did report him. Once again, I was a kid at the time, so I don't know exactly what happened. I do know that his family is rich and mine isn't. Could that have had something to do with why he got away with what he did? When my sister was 23, they ended up getting married. Why did she marry him? I'd guess because he was making good money already. Were my parents thrilled about any of this? Of course they weren't, but at 23 she was making her own decisions. Again, I have never stated that I think my brother-in-law is this great perfect person. I've never really been close to him. All I can see is that he does seem to be a good dad to his kids. Do I know all the details about their marriage? No. Does that mean I can't think that the guy my sister is running around with is a loser? No. I think the guy's a scumbag for chasing a married woman. Nothing is going to change my mind about him. Do I think my brother-in-law is great? No. Was it shady of him to be with a girl as young as my sister? Yes. Would I have married him? No. But does he seem to be doing a good job of providing for my nephew and nieces? Yes. Do all 3 of them adore their dad? Yes. So people are not one-dimensional things. People are complicated and have many facets. So while I may not exactly like my brother-in-law, I can admit that he's a good parent. Far better than my sister anyway. My concern is that my sister is going to end up like our bio dad and not have any sort of relationship with her kids. This isn't exactly what you asked, but are none of you in contact with her soon-to-be ex? Y'all want a relationship with the kids. Build a good relationship with him. You don't have to choose your sister over him just because she's blood. I doubt you can get through to her at this point. Let her write out her own self-destructive ways. The best thing you can do is be there for your nieces and nephew. Nothing you can do, really. Support brother-in-law so the kids can continue to see you periodically in the future, but don't babysit for your sister. She sounds like she got married too young and is not okay with it. Wants to get some fun in while she can. Problem is how it's affecting everyone else involved and how it'll impact her kids. Usually when someone is doing this kind of exploding in their life, there's no way to get them to stop. She just has to do it. And sadly, it would likely mean not being in the kids' lives, which is going to be so hard and painful for them, plus the rest of you, and realize her mistakes. You can't make her choose something else if she's set to sabotage this. The family can set boundaries in terms of not watching the kids when she should be, but even that may be hard if she chooses to drag them along to whatever foolishness she wants to do. Some backstory. I am one of 5 siblings. I have an older brother. I'm the second oldest, and the other 3 are my younger brother and 2 sisters. Growing up, my parents worked a lot and made a great amount of money. However, when they were home, they had to deal with my older and younger brothers, as well as one of my sisters, and so never had much time for my younger sister and I. My troublemaking siblings did everything from skipping class, school, fighting, having some really shady friends to doing D. My sister would trade S for W. My older brother had anger issues and would pick fights with people, and was a jerk, though never to us. All sorts of stuff which probably made my parents go gray earlier than they should. In contrast, I tried to be the good daughter, helped out, studied, and got good grades. Even used my own money from my pay from age 16 to help out if my parents needed it, though they really didn't. But they never had time for me or my sister, and I grew resentful. They couldn't make it to parent-teacher meetings because they were dealing with my siblings. We couldn't get Christmas presents some years because one or several of my siblings were in trouble. I couldn't even get the fee to do martial arts or tennis because they were busy with my siblings. So I grew up resenting my siblings for basically taking all my parents' time and a lot of money while never getting any sort of recognition. I finally cracked and asked my mom about that when I was 20, and she just kind of hesitated to give me an answer, but tried reassuring me that my sister and I were not the sort of kids who needed help or needed my parents' constant attention. Okay, fine, but some attention would have been nice. I remember there were times I had award ceremonies at school that my parents didn't attend, but if one of my siblings improved from a D to a C, my parents would talk about that for weeks, and they say they needed encouragement so they'd improve more. So I went off to college, did my thing, earned a couple degrees, and at this point, I have a pretty great job that pays well. I've sort of distanced myself from my family because nothing I do would ever get any sort of recognition, and yes, I wanted that. I helped my parents out a couple years ago with some big bills that screwed my savings up, which I'd been working on, but I've made great progress since then at rebuilding. My parents are not as successful as they used to be. Aside from poor saving habits, lavishing my delinquent siblings anytime they did anything even a bit right, things took a turn for the worse in my country, and they were among a large number of people who were laid off and struggling to get jobs in their field of work. My sister got into some trouble recently, and my parents are asking if I would pay for it. I thought about it, but said no. I'm glad my sister has sort of gotten herself together, but she still has a lot of bad habits, and I want no part in the hand-holding my parents constantly did for her and my brothers in our younger years. My parents also fell into some problems with some payments they can't make and want me to help. In total, all of that would cost upwards of $100,000. I have the money, but I'm not using it for anything in particular right now. My debts are all settled and so on. But I'm just tired, and it feels like the only time in my life my parents have ever given me attention is when they need something from me. And of course, it's not just them, but my sister too. I refused, and one brother called me and yelled at me for like 45 minutes. That's the older aggressive one, and the only reason I'm sure he hasn't shown up where I live is because I moved some months back, and my family hasn't been to my apartment since. I don't think it's surprising I don't care to invite them. My other brother is very disappointed, and at least 2 aunts and 1 uncle have all expressed some kind of disappointment. For duck's sake, those are your brother, sister, niece. Why don't you help them? I love my family, I really do, but I am exhausted with trying to get their attention and don't want to help them despite them badly needing it. Not going to lie, it feels satisfying to see them squirm, and I don't really care if someone considers me horrible for it. And as sad as it is, I don't want them completely out of my life. What should I do? Your parents are able-bodied 50-year-olds who choose to have 5 children. Why can't they pay for your, now adult, siblings' care? This is not your responsibility. Look up the word parentification, because it sounds like this is what your family has done to you over the years. This often happens to the one kid in a big family who chooses to be responsible. It happened to me. Don't fall for their guilting BS. This is not your responsibility, and the people trying to put the burden of other people's responsibilities onto you are aggressive. You should distance yourself from anybody who doesn't support you in this manner. Don't allow people to yell at you, least of all for 45 minutes. Tell them to call back when they can discuss things like civilized adults and hang up. Don't let this aggression perpetuate and continue. Teach them how you are to be treated, and if they can't get on board, cut them out entirely. The whole ducked-up lot of them.